we are super excited about this session. As you can see from, I don't have a wide grin, but I'm too happy because I have known this particular author for a long time, for the longest time. So for those who live under a rock and don't know about Nikita Singh, let me tell you a little bit about her. Of course, she has written 12 books. Among those are The Reason Is You, Every Time It Rains, Like a Love Song. Of course, she, after, publishing a lot in India, she, pursued, I wouldn't say greener pastures. We are sorry to, we are not too happy to lose you, but you went abroad and pursued your MFA in creative writing, particularly fiction. And of course, on the side, you also work as in an energy company. And uh, among other things, of course, we are here to talk about this particular book. It's called What Do You See When You Look in the Mirror? And I must say the cover is quite different. And I, of course, would like to admit that this is my first book of yours, which I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing, but I loved it anyways. I'm not saying because you are right here, but of course, welcome to the Booknerds podcast, and we are so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So the first question, of course, is that about evolution. You start and, did you start back in 2013 or 14, is it? Or before that?
2011.
11. Okay, great. So about evolution from the first book and this now, what is the kind of change you see? In the, of course, the creative writing, you have pursued it formally also now. What is the one change that you see that makes it kind of, sometimes easier for you to write?
I don't know about easier. I've seen a change that makes it harder because before, when I used to write, I didn't really care about what other people might think of the book or what I'm writing about. So I would write much faster and I would never have writer's block or anything like that in the first few books. I was just doing whatever I wanted. And I still do that, but it's more like a process. It's more of a conversation that I've had to have with myself that, okay, this is what I really want to do, so I will do it, and that kind of stuff. Earlier, it used to be, because there was so little at stake because so few people were reading me that I just was doing. And I think that's true for every sort of career, like of anyone. When you start, you think that you know a lot, and then as you work in the field more and more, and you read more books and you read better work from other people, even for musicians or anyone, it's just that you realize that there's so much that you don't know, and I think you become less confident as you do more. I don't know. Weird.
Oh my gosh, that's quite interesting because I thought that it gets easier, but that's quite something. Okay, let's talk about the book and of course the editor and author relationship, because stuff like this, these are short stories, and there has to be sometimes a thread in short stories. The best ones, I don't know if the best ones do, but it's a different format. Is there a thread here? I have read the book, but of course the viewers would love to know that is there a thread here, or I don't want to say much because it will kind of, spoil the fun. But did you think like that before writing? Like there has to be a thread or not?
I think I had a few stories already in my mind. I knew what I wanted to write about. And then I started thinking about how I would tie them together. There could have been more obvious effort to tie them together, even if they didn't go together, if I tried to do it that way. But I honestly just wanted to have these stories out. And I started seeing, like, connecting the dots once I had a few different ideas. And I was like, okay, so this is all sort of about people who are very different from each other. They're in different fields of, I don't know, like just demographic in that way. Like they're different ages, they're different genders, they live in different places geographically, and they have different circumstances, and they're going through different things. But at the same time, we're all human, and I wanted to sort of write about what's going on inside their heads as they go through this stuff. So that's how the secret inner lives of people that others around them would be sort of surprised or shocked to find became a theme, because mirror was an image that I had from the beginning. I was thinking about, like even on social media or at work or with your families or friends, people are different with
Right.
everyone. And then how are you with yourself? At the end of the day, when you look at yourself in the mirror,
Yeah.
is this person that you've created, is that you? How much of it is you? How much of it is manufactured by you or by society or by circumstances and all that stuff? So that was really interesting to me. It's always interesting to write about what's going on inside someone's head and sort of like go into it and see it from within. So I think
Yes.
that was the main theme, but it sort of
Yeah.
organically came about.
Yeah. And I told you earlier also that it was quite an intense experience for me. Not
Yeah.
as in it's not serious, but intense because it's very tangible. So it affects you more, perhaps. With fantasy, or it's not like that, but this was quite different, to be honest, and I'll come back to that maybe later. You say that this comes from a deep seated voice buried in my psyche that tells me that secretly, silently, everyone is rooting against me, waiting for me to fail, so I endure quietly, not giving anyone a chance to relish watching me struggle. I mean, this is no less intense, because you are. I mean, for for a long time, you have been kind of in the, say, the reader's eye, public eye, and this is important, and it comes perhaps from a very personal space. Is it?
Well, so what you're talking about is from the author's note, and it comes from a part where I was talking about how we portray ourselves to other people. And
Right.
so I say that I find it hard to sort of share my grief with other people, especially when I'm going through it. It's easier to talk about it later because I just feel like a lot of people, I mean, maybe in my early 20s, I would have been treating this differently. I would share with other people, but then realize later that maybe, some people are just curious. They're not actually in this with you. They just want to know. But like, I don't know. It was,
Yeah.
it's a complicated emotion. It's basically the idea that people love to watch other people fail, and the people love to pull them down and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And I think that's a big part of why people feel so comfortable sharing their
Right.
happiness on social media but not their grief, because it just
Oh
feels
yes.
like others are winning and I'm losing if I do that, and that kind of stuff. So I think this is the whole section in the author's note where I was talking about, it's so challenging to try to be, try to please other people or make a character of yourself to present to other people,
Yeah.
and that's why I said that. It's such an emotion that's been with me for such a long time.
Great. I'll ask you about social media more, but Shiva Munyal is asking that I watched in one of your interviews that you give happy end to the book because you want to believe in optimism.
Yeah.
But what are your views about writing tragic romance?
Um, I've
Oh,
done it before.
before you answer that, Gulshan Dhingra loves your accent.
Oh,
So
thanks.
that's great.
So I've definitely done that before. I don't know if I have like a strong view. I just feel like
Yeah.
not that my stories end on a very positive note or a very negative note, but I want it to be realistic. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, if you've spent 5 hours, 6 hours with a book and then you put it down, I don't want to leave people in like despair. I
Yeah.
want it to end on a positive note more. So it's a spectrum, and then more on the positive side than the negative, and just feel, even if the ending might not be happy per se for you or for the character, but
Right.
I just want it to feel positive and sort of like there's hope, and I would much rather leave people feeling uplifted than, dragged down.
True, true, true. Let's talk about book clubs because we are very passionate about. I mean, we are a book club, and we evolved from being offline to online, of course, due to the pandemic. You have a book club. It's called Nikita's Book Club. What was the thought process behind it? How important is it for an author to have that kind of connection? And how do you pick up books? What is the process?
So I started Nikita's bookshelf last September, so it's been a whole year. We just did our anniversary meeting last month in September, and we took a break in sorry, actually August. So we took a break in September, so we're gonna come back in October this month. Um, the idea was that I read a lot, but then I don't share about it
Yeah.
with everyone because I have a bigger audience on my main account, and I just wanted
Right.
sort of a place where we only have readers who are actually interested in the book and not just the person or the idea of
Right.
being successful or becoming an author and all of those
Right.
things.
Yeah.
So I wanted a reading community basically, and I missed having that from my grad school when I did my master's.
Yeah.
We were reading a lot. We were reading a book every week, and then we would go into the seminar which we had every Wednesday and talk about it for about 2.5 hours. And I just wanted to see how different people look at the same book and what connects with them, what doesn't, and that kind of stuff. So that was the idea. So the reason I called it bookshelf was because it was supposed to just be the books that I was reading, and I was gonna share as I read, just like small like thoughts that I had and things like that. It wasn't ever supposed to be super serious in any way.
Yeah.
But then I thought maybe every month, out of all these books that I am going to read that are on my bookshelf, maybe people would want to read one with me, sort of like in their own time, and then discuss it with me, just like the seminar that I
Yeah.
used to have. So that's how it started. But then as we kind of grew in numbers, and also as we approached like our fifth month or sixth month, we started to realize that maybe if there was a theme that people would um, all want to, and that way we could have diversity, sort of like if we read a nonfiction, then maybe we read a memoir next, and maybe we read a fantasy next. So we wanted a range of people, so that just like a real book club, people would want to be at the end of the day want to have read 12 different books from
Yeah.
across genres and across the different authors. So yeah, it just kind of morphed into what it is now. And so when we start our second season, which is this October, um, I wanted to be more intentional, like the books that we pick in that sense. It was sort of haphazard in the beginning, but it was we do it online. It's like an hour and a half every
Yeah.
month, and it's on Google Meet, so everybody gets to talk, and we do giveaways and all that stuff. But it's really like super casual and relaxed.
Yeah.
Nobody, yeah, everybody just has fun.
Awesome. It sounds like a lot of fun. I should be there for once. I should join. Totally. Anyways, I coming back to the book, there was one particular story that really fascinated me because it was it broke the entire structure of the book, kind of. And you have I noticed that you have tried to do that, which I really appreciated while reading. I'm talking about anything, and it was kind of very different. It was very lyrical, and I uh, it was a lot of fun reading it. To be honest, tell us more about why this break of structure. Did you want the book to be very sort of? Can I use eclectic here? Yeah, perhaps. What was the thought process behind it?
So anything is a story that I've had for maybe 5, 6 years. I think I worked on it in grad school also. Um,
Okay.
it was supposed to be sort of experimental when I first wrote it, and there's like things in it that were so obvious that people don't get. I wonder if you did. I'm guessing that you didn't because you didn't mention it.
Yeah.
If you had, you would have. So it's basically divided into 14 scenes.
Yeah.
14, yeah. And then
Yeah.
the first scene is like about you. So it's written in second person to a second person. And then the second would be with an I. So it's like about me in the present, and this is about you in the past. And then it's like goes back and forth, alternates between present and past. And then every time the whole page that is about me, every single sentence starts with an I. And then everything that's about you starts with a U. And that's the first 10 scenes. So alternating between, it starts with the past, I think. So alternating between past, present. So there's a stream of, so two parallel stories happening in the past, how they met and how they got here, and in the present, what's going on right now. And then there's a break after the 10th scene, or in the 10th scene, where
Yes.
the boundaries that we've created with this, like these blocks kind of breaks, and after which it's like, is this real or not, is up to you, up to your interpretation, because the last four blocks after that are written, they're italicized, and it's up to you to interpret whether they actually happened or not, because they happen in the future. So that's in the future tense. So there was past, present, and then there's future. And yeah, it also happens with like a you and I.
Yeah, it's experimental, and that's why it's my favorite story of them all, because I want to go back to it. Because you read it once, then you go, okay, I
there's
understand
stuff in
something
there
else.
that you can read in a second read. You would recognize now that you know the ending,
Yes.
because with the structure like this, where these are these blocks, and you can't go over a page. It was never a page. It was always like 75% of the page. You have to be so intentional and like so frugal with the words that you use. It can only every word that is in there was thought about and put there for a reason. So yeah, it was such an interesting, and I think there's a huge thing in the writers community. I don't know. People used to talk about it back in the day, where if you limit yourself, like if you take something, because right now I have this big toolbox of language, my control over the language, the vocabulary, the styles that I've read that I can do, and all that stuff. I can write in different genders, different tenses, and all these like different formats. But if you take something away, then it activates a different part of your brain. This is kind of weird, but yeah, that is what they say. So I had friends who would write write without the letter L or a letter K or something. So then that makes you think about every time you need to use that word. If you want to use love, you have to think about a different word. If you want to use anything that starts with an L, you have to think about, if you were going to say lion, instead of that, you have to change the animal maybe, or whatever. So that kind of challenges you to think of things that you don't think of intuitively. So your writing changes that way. So it was a fun experiment for me. And I think it worked out because it is one of everyone's favorite stories in the book, for sure.
Oh, yes, totally. Also, I would like to quote from the book, and it was quite interesting. And you have, kind of referenced this again also in the book. It's that we are all different. Even plants, we all need different things to sustain us, make us happy. Plants are your plants are a great example to demonstrate this. Your two plants, both of them received the same things, more or less. You cared for both of them, yet one of them flourished and the other perished. Sorry, my Kindle copy is kind of staggered because, anyways. So it's a wonderful part, and the story also, it's quite something. Would you like to share more about this one?
So the watering can is the story that you're talking about, and it's
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
inspired by my little cousins Tutu and Popo. They're
Okay.
obsessed with
Those are fun
the
names.
Avengers.
Those are fun names.
Yeah, those are their pet names. They're not
Yes.
those are their real names, but
Yes.
yeah. And basically that's I kind of the story is kind of like a metaphor for siblings in a way that you are raised in the same home, you're given the exact same things, you literally eat the same thing, you buy clothing at the same stores, you go to the same school and all that stuff, but then you can be so different because um, because everybody needs, so it's like nature and nurture, so your nature is obviously different, but then also even if you get the same nurturing, you might not be getting the things that you need because everyone's so different. And so it was supposed to be a cute and funny story, which it was. But then in the end, because it seemed like a story that belongs in like a moral science book that we used
Yeah.
to read as kids, so there had to be a moral of the story and how it would end. It really, the story wasn't about how this is going to end. It was more about while you're in it, what's happening right now, because it's written from this 10-year-old kid's point of view, or 9, I think he's in the story. He's 10 now. Uh, so it was supposed to be fun. It was supposed to be about some parts are real. The part where he tries to use a fake bill to pay for something, and the part where
Yeah.
um,
Well, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun
yeah,
actually, because I mean, we all have done it. So
yeah.
it was
He
quite,
was like, this looks
yeah.
very real to me. Maybe maybe it will
It
work.
is. It is. It is. I have done it. I mean, so I really appreciated that. It was a lot of fun, and it was kind of a sort of departure for me in the middle of the book, because I love children books,
Yeah,
right? So it was a very sort of fun element, although it is more than that, and the readers will read and kind of leave their review on Amazon. But it was quite something in between all those intense stories.
yeah,
Put that one there, and it is a lot of fun. Let's talk
yeah,
about HarperCollins, because it has been quite a relationship with them, and this one also is published by them. Shout out to them for letting us do this, by the way. And what about the camaraderie between the editor and author? Because now you have written like 11 to 12 books.
mhm.
How has it changed, or it remains the same always?
So this is my 13th book,
Yes.
and my 5th with Harper. So I was with Penguin Random House before that. And then
Yeah.
when I moved to Harper, that was because my editor at HarperCollins, Mansi, had read all of my previous books and presented us this pitch. I wasn't there, I was a student in New York, but my
Okay.
agent went to the meeting, and then she had read all the books in that week leading up to it. And she was talking about why this would be a good fit for her. And then when I spoke to the CEO for the first time, who also was at Penguin before, so our paths had crossed before,
Yeah.
he asked me where I see my writing going in 5 years or something like that, which
Yeah.
both of those things like inspired confidence in me, just because he was more invested in my career or my path as a writer, and less
Yeah.
about, oh, let's make this book a bestseller, or like let's write
Right.
something that would sell a lot of copies.
Right.
And so that was those were the two main reasons that I moved to Harper. And then we signed 2 books in the beginning. After the first book was released and I had a good experience, they asked me if I wanted to sign 2 more, which I did. So then I had 3 more left in the contract. And then I did Letters to My Ex, which is a different size and format. So we did a separate contract for that. So that's how, in the end, I ended up having a 5-book deal. This was the 5th one.
Right.
And the experience with them, like the relationship with the editor that you're talking about, I had really great relationship with Mansi for the first 2 books that I did, which was Like a Love Song and Every Time It Rains. And then she moved to a different company, and I got a different editor, and now I'm working with my 3rd Harper editor, I think, and I worked with her in my previous book as well. So we do get along really well, and I think it comes down to whether the editor gets your book or not. Because, of course, like, it's a professional relationship, so they will do their best. They will do a great job on it. But then you really want your editor to be sort of representing you within the company. So
Right.
if you have a concern, they bring it to them. So they are your medium. They are your connection to the to the publishing house, and like they are basically talking to both sides. So
Yeah.
it
Right.
is really important that they are your champion. They are really invested in the book, and they want it to be the best that it can be. The best book that
Yeah.
the book that you wrote, not the book that they want to make it, because that is something that happens in publishing as well. The editor tries to
Right.
sometimes get their way, even though it's not their book. Definitely. So it has happened to me before with a different editor.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Swati, who edited this book and the one before this book was very different. So I actually, with any other book, if it's a novel, the editor only gets involved once I've written a good draft that I want to send to them, and it goes all at once, and then they can figure out their timeline accordingly. But with this, because it's a collection of short stories, and I wanted breaks between writing so that they sound different and they sound like they were written at different times. I didn't want, they're about different characters, so I didn't want the whole book to sound like it comes from the same mind. Um, so I was bugging her constantly. I would like send her one story, and then I will tell her that I will send you the next one in a few days, and then I won't even write for 2 weeks, and then write another couple, and then so I sent her stories in blocks, and she somehow managed to work with me all through that without quitting.
Yeah. But I feel that perhaps when you're like 12 books down, you have to be more careful, like not sounding kind of monotonous, perhaps, especially with a short story collection. It must
I
be
don't know if that's a struggle that I've had, just because
okay.
it's the character, and I don't start writing anything until I have the voice of the character in my head. So
Okay.
I know exactly who this person is and how they think. So
Yeah.
the narration would be different because it's coming from somebody else's point of view.
Right.
So that's not really a problem. I think the problem is in the plot sometimes, when you don't want, because of course you are attracted to a certain kind of story, and
Yeah.
because that's my personal choice, and it's hard to like not um, go back into that and like repeat that. But it was, this book has 15 different points of view, um, and it
Agree.
never felt like it's going to overlap or anything. So it's not, the voice is not a problem for me. The
Yeah,
dialogues
yeah,
are not a problem for me. I think the problem is, before I start writing, I want to have the whole plot, and then finding the right plot to start writing is the
yeah,
worst. It takes me so long. It takes me 10 months, over a year. This book, I hadn't published for 2 years before this. So I was just,
right.
I won't sit down to write unless I have everything. So just like getting all of that is the challenge.
So you're harder on yourself, and one of the characters you have mentioned this, that being hard on yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
is it like that? Are you hard on yourself?
Yeah, I have
Maybe.
expectations from myself that I know what I'm capable of if I work hard. So it's just that. It's like, okay, I'm doing enough. Sure, everybody thinks that it's great. So it really isn't about everybody else. It's that I know that I'm capable of more, so why am I not doing it? And so it is, it's a challenge. It's,
It's
I
like golf,
think,
maybe. Is it like golf? You challenge yourself all the time to get better.
mm,
Perhaps, yeah.
maybe.
On page 145, self care day, and you say that schedule your self care time and guard it with passion.
Yeah.
It's just a sentence there in italics, but it means a lot. I mean, right now, um, it's um, it's very important, and you have mentioned it. So I really want to talk about this self
So
care.
Self-Care Day is a story that was only
Self care.
4 pages, and out
Yeah,
of which the actual, so it's like a blog that this person wrote, and then so there's a caption at the top and at the bottom. So the actual story that this character wrote is only 3 pages, and
yeah,
I thought it was so fun. such a little story, because like when you exist in this world, we're reading all these different things, and people are telling us what to do and how to behave and how to like take care of yourself, make sure you do this, make sure you do that, and this person gets caught up in that, and she's like, oh no, I have to take care of myself. Apparently this is super
Yes.
important, I have to do this, and then she does it so passionately, and then she loses track of why she's doing it. It's more about because everybody else is, and everybody's saying that this is super important, which it is,
Right.
but the way she's going about it is kind of extreme, and I just wanted it to be a little funny. It's just a
Yeah.
little comedic relief.
I said that I wanted to come back to social media and this story. I don't know if I should be talking about this. You have kind of addressed plagiarism in this, and I was like, I was uncomfortable. Okay, so while reading this, why? But why? Because I don't know. I just wanted to know
Why you were uncomfortable reading about
why. In
plagiarism?
the sense, because it was like you know uh, there has been history, and kind of you have addressed it here. So I was like, why have you written this story? I really wanted to know, and you don't have to answer it. I mean, if you don't want
I don't care. What do you mean history?
to. As in, I'm talking about this kid who is on the internet, and
Okay.
she's trying to kind of what do you call, her story gets plagiarized. So it's something that has happened to many people. How do you see this? Where does this go? How Where does that leave the story?
Okay, so the story is not really about plagiarism if you think about it that way, because
Because it
I
starts
mean, I
from
don't want to
social
give it
media.
away, but it,
Yeah.
in my opinion, it hadn't happened. It wasn't
Yes.
real. It was The story is called real because
Right.
it's
Right.
things that happen in this person's head, and
Yes.
it's again like a funny format, that story.
Yeah.
Let me try to find
Yeah.
it, because it's written in one long block without any
Yeah.
breaks. So I
Yeah.
put it like towards the end of the book, because I was like, if people stick with the book till now, they
Yes.
can handle it. But if they were kind of freaked out with earlier stories, they're not going to.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
could
like
handle it. I could
there are
handle it too.
no breaks in it, no paragraphs. So it's just
Yeah.
these like the idea was to make the reader kind of
Yeah.
claustrophobic and have them read this in one go, because there's really no
Right.
break. Where would you stop if you stopped in the
Right.
middle? So
I
you would
came
have
back
to
to
like,
the social
what?
media. Yes,
Where do you stop?
sorry. I wanted to ask, actually, I went back to the social media thing, like I asked you in the beginning. I mean, you are also on social media. How hard is it, to kind of keep up with it? That was
Okay.
my question aimed at that. Yeah.
Okay. So about the story, first, she's thinking about three things that are going on in her lives, uh,
Yeah.
her and her roommates. So she's
Yes.
thinking about her future, and she wants to be this writer, and then at the same time she's thinking about her
Yes.
roommate and her new boyfriend, and she's thinking about her weight or
Yes.
going to the gym. So she's
Right.
thinking about those in the beginning in like so she would think about it for
Yeah.
several sentences, one thing, and then move
Right.
on to the next, and then
Yeah.
move on to the next,
Yeah.
and it's circular, so it keeps going, and then it keeps coiling tighter and tighter. So towards the end she's like thinking about one thing in one sentence, and then another, and then another, and then keeps going tighter. So it's like in one sentence she's thinking about all three things somehow, and it's just all
Wow.
connecting. The things are happening in her head. And so she jumps from thinking about, oh, I want to be like this one writer that she reads and has posters of or something. It's been
Monica.
a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monica. And then
Yeah.
she starts thinking that something that Monica wrote, the way it sounds so familiar, maybe I wrote it. Oh, I must have it in somewhere in my computer. So it's just like
Yes.
it spirals completely out of control, and she starts thinking that this author has plagiarized her, even though this is something that
Wow.
we never see it on her computer, so we don't know.
Right.
And she's thinking about going to the gym and working out, but then we see something completely. So it's like it's an unreliable narrator, something.
Yeah.
She's thinking in a different light than what we're seeing, so two different things
Wow.
are happening, and then all of it
That was
comes
that
together
was
in the
some
end.
inception for me. That was some inception for me, because it was it was kind of fun, and a great way to kind of also address the way social media perhaps could be, detrimental. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because she's super
yeah,
young and she's already worried that she needs to start even younger. She's, she needs to be
yes,
doing things right now instead of waiting. She's in boarding school or college, first or second year of college or something,
I
and
think
she's
college.
already
I think
thinking about, wait, no, I have to be on track
yes,
already. What am I doing? So social media does make it that way. You asked about how social media can be difficult, especially for younger people. And
yeah,
it's that if you traditionally in society, people would know maybe 50 people, or if you go to school, then maybe you know 100 people
right,
by name and faces, and then you
yeah,
know a few more
right,
just by, they're around you. But
yeah,
so if you're really good at something, if you're a really good dancer, you can be the best dancer out of the people that you know. And if you're a really good writer, or if you are really good at whatever sport, then you can be really the best in that. Or you like skateboarding or whatever you like. But now with social media, it's so hard to be the best at anything, and people just
right,
can't get over
yeah,
the idea that you don't really need to be the absolute best in the whole world, because there are millions and millions, like billions of people on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram all taken together, and there's no way that everyone's different and we can't embrace that. Everybody still wants to be at the top and wants to be the best. You can't just, it's not enough to do your thing and do it the
right,
best that you can. It's all
yeah,
about competing with others, and that is what is really detrimental to people's mental health,
yeah,
because it's hard to be the best in your community. It's This is not the way humans were supposed to be. You weren't
yeah,
supposed to know
yeah.
thousands and thousands of people. And
True,
anything you
true,
can do now, if you go online, somebody or hundreds and thousands of people are doing
yeah,
it better than you. Because
yeah,
if you make a beautiful painting around you, everyone's like, oh my god, I could never, this is so beautiful. But you go online and you see that obviously there are
there's
more
so many.
talented artists who are doing better,
Yeah,
making better art than you. So
yeah.
it's the competition that people have with others, which is
As
why
my friend very funnily said that everybody on LinkedIn is successful. I don't know,
LinkedIn is
he,
a whole another monster.
yes,
Like
yes.
people on LinkedIn are on something. I don't know what
Yes.
they it's
But I
always
think
like so
they,
inspirational. Like people
yeah,
absolutely put themselves on a pedestal and preach to others. It's never like, oh, we're just people talking to each other.
that's
Which exists more on like on Twitter
yeah,
and maybe even
yeah,
Instagram now. Instagram used to
yeah,
be far more
yeah,
toxic before, I believe.
yeah, yeah.
But now people are more open
Yeah.
to being honest.
Are you open to a mentorship? Do you mentor writers, or do you do that now?
Oh, I don't know anyone who needs mentorship, I think.
There's so many. There's so many. Anyway, so I think so. They can always reach out to you. Let's talk books, and this is my final question. Because you have a bookshelf,
Mhm.
Nikita's bookshelf, and this is the Book Nerds. What have you been reading recently, which you would recommend? Like couple maybe to our viewers, and they would love to kind of pick up those
So I'm
books.
reading right now two books. I guess one of them I left in India, so I've been reading it on my iPad now.
Yeah,
It's which one was it? There are two books by Chitra Banerjee.
yeah,
It was the one about Draupadi. So it wasn't the
yeah,
Palace of
yeah.
Illusions. It was the other one, and I keep forgetting.
Yes.
No, it was the Palace of Illusions.
Alice in
The other
Illusion.
one is
Yeah,
the Forest of Enchantments.
yeah,
So I was
yeah.
reading the Palace of Illusions, and I had to make notes because there were so many names, and these are names that we've
Yes.
heard like from the Mahabharata. So you've been hearing
Yeah.
them your whole life, so it's
Yes.
easy to mix
We
up.
love notes. We love
Yeah,
notes.
yeah. And then I'm reading My Dark Vanessa,
Yeah,
which is very difficult to read because it is about child abuse and all that
yeah,
stuff. So it's, yeah, the main character that this person talks about is a pedophile. And so
yeah,
I read half of it and then I took a break, so I have to get back to it.
yeah. Awesome. Okay, guys. So you know what to do. Pick up this one, And of course, the cover is awesome. We didn't talk about it. Shout out to the creators.
Oh yeah,
And
I'm
quite
enjoying the cover, and it's like
yeah, quite
insane.
different from the previous book, I must say. A great change, and it was super fun having you here. I mean, it is an honor, to be honest. You are an extremely accomplished, and we look up to you. As millennials, we look up to you for inspiration to work hard and get better at what we do, whatever we do. And I'm sure that people will read this one and leave their reviews, tell you on social media. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was so fun to be here and talk about this. Interested. It's super interesting what different people see in the book and what are the stories, because there are 15 of them and you highlighted 4 or 5 of them that you
Yes,
thought about the most. And
because I
it's
wanted
very different.
to.
Every time I talk to somebody, it's always a different set of
Yes,
stories.
yes.
That's fun.
And it's amazing. I mean, that's the great thing about books. It's not
Yeah.
like Netflix or something. It
that
is.
that was also the intention with the book, that I didn't want every story, I didn't want one reader to like every story. So I'm sure that there are stories that people are just like, okay, I guess it's fine that I read it, but I'm not gonna remember it, or I don't care about it that much.
Yeah,
Because I didn't want it to be just like all medium stories. I wanted them to be kind of on the extreme, so some people might really like a story and then others might really hate it. So I wanted
yeah.
it to be kind of polarized like that.
Oh, wow, wow. So before you go, one final question. I think Sweta asked that what inspires you? It's a big question in writing, I suppose. It's a generic
In
one, but
writing, I think reading.
okay,
Reading is
okay.
what, because a lot of the times I think about books, I think about stories, and when I actually think about sitting down and writing it, it feels like such a big task, and it obviously is, because it's so many words on an empty piece of
Yes.
word document, I guess. But when I read other stories on other books, it's so thrilling sometimes when you find a book that you really love, that I'm like, okay, yeah, this is why I write, this is why I read. Because when I'm in a writer's block, I'm also thinking about, why do people read? Like, it makes no sense that we spend so much time just like it doesn't. Sometimes I just can't see a reason, but then I read a good book and I'm like, all right, it just revitalizes me,
Yeah.
and I think it's reading
Actually,
that.
this one question that was not on my notes, and I suddenly, noticed that you live in Montreal right now,
Yeah.
and it's. I mean, it's a departure from here, and are you afraid that you might kind of, because it doesn't seem so in this book, you have the kind of the pulse of whatever is happening here. Most of the stories are based here, and some
Mhm.
are actually abroad, if I'm not wrong. Is that the mix you wanted? Is that the kind of person you have evolved into?
I think I don't worry about that, because the thing is, I can't worry about changing or growing, because I will. Like, based on where you live or where you've been, you assimilate, and that is growth. And I don't want to be scared of it and then not do it. So I want to go out. I want to meet different people. I want to be open to those things. But at the same time, at the end of the day, all the stories, everything that I write about is about humans. So there is a deep connection there, and. um I yeah, it's just like, at the end of the day, you will connect to people if it is a real emotion, and it's like it comes through in the subtext. It's not as much as the text. So yeah, I try not to worry about that.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Love the book. Looking forward to so much more. I'm at fault that I haven't read more before, but I will make sure that I pick all of them in the future. So yeah, for some damn reason, I don't know. But thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being here on the Booknerds podcast. Thank you so much.